Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to take a look at the Terris Wrought of Copper World Resource for the Mistborn role-playing RPG game. So, we're going to go down the table. I'm going to give you a general idea what comes with this book, but there's a lot of spoilers. So, if you haven't read the Mistborn series, I highly recommend reading the Mistborn series before you read this book. But let's go ahead down the table. Like I said, I'll give you a general idea what comes with this book so you know what you're getting. And we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so we're going to look at this Mistborn adventure game, Terris Wrought of Copper. And this is going to be a world resource for players of the Mistborn RPG. Now, there are a ton of spoilers in this book. So we're not going to go over a whole lot. I'm just going to show you what basically comes in the book. And there's a lot of information in this book. You have a really short story at the beginning, which is about 2 pages, and you have the introduction, which tells you more about the Terris world. Then you have the basic history of the Terris society. And it's going to go into basically the conquest of Terris and the takeover by Lord Ruler, which is not a spoiler for the books. It's basically the beginning, before the books even start. It's going to talk about the Terris people and how they live and what their life will look like, so that if you want to play a Terris character, you really know more of the flavor of the world, so you can play your character better, because Mistborn, the RPG, is all about the story. In fact, the DM in the game is called the narrator. Mainly because you are narrating, he's the narrator for this story. You're creating a story that is surrounded by all these characters. So this is super helpful for the narrator. It's also super helpful for a fan of the Mistborn series who wants to play the Terris character as best as possible and have the most authentic feel to the character, and basically understand the rough life that is the Terris people. They're basically have the worst life in, or their people have been hurt the most in this world. Basically, occupations that they can have: keepers, steward was before that. So these different occupations. The Synoid, which basically are the ones that run the Terris people behind Lord Ruler's back. Also not a spoiler. And this is about the somewhat resistance that they hold. Basically, which is also not a spoiler, the Terris people, for the most part, are just wanting to watch the Lord Ruler die. Just fall and go away. So they want to be around to see that. So that is the main driving force for the Terris people. And it gets Furakami, which is a big part of Terris culture. That's actually why they're mainly persecuted, to try to get rid of this. This gets more in depth on it. This talks about some of the heroes from the Terris culture. This gets into some of them from the book, and this gets into some of the advancements they have. And very briefly, so just basically going to give you more on Terris as a group. This here, which I'm not going to show you a whole lot of it, is a campaign. You actually get a campaign with this book. And it's a really cool story. It can go over like 4 or 5 campaign sessions. I would suggest that only the narrator read this. And instead of the narrator making up the story, you're going to have guidelines, just sort of like a D&D campaign, for your story that you're going to be telling with that crew. And it is a big, you can say a big chunk of this book. And it is a long, well, 4 or 5 session campaign, which is really nice and Terris focused. So that is what you're going to get in the Brandon Sanderson Mistborn Terris Wrought of Copper basically world resource. So let's go ahead back up the table here, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this book. So I really like this book. This book is amazing. It's really well written. I really love the second half of the book for the campaign that's in there. It goes up to 4 or 5 sessions. If you really love the Mistborn Adventure game, or you're trying to get into the Mistborn Adventure game and you're the narrator and you're having trouble trying to figure out a campaign to play with the group that you want to go, this is a really good one. It's a really good structure for setting up and running 4 or 5 sessions, so you can get a really good start into the world of Mistborn. It's also really great for veterans of the game. So if you keep going through and your crew's going there and you're like, we'd like to have a new adventure, this one gives a really nice new adventure in it. Also, if you are the narrator and you want to get more in depth into the Terris culture and world and do it correctly, this is a great resource for that. Or you want to play a Terris character, you've read the Mistborn series, or if you're planning to, read it first. This will help you make the best Terris character possible. So I would highly recommend this for anyone who loves the Mistborn adventure game, or wants to get more out of the Mistborn adventure game. This is going to be a really great resource, and I highly recommend it. This is almost like a must buy. So one thing I'm going to throw out here too is, if you're a fan of the Mistborn series, you can find a lot of wonderful additional detail that will help flesh out that world. So I highly recommend that for people who love the Mistborn series. This tells you a lot more about the Terris people. This is a great compendium to the book set. So if you love the Mistborn series, then I highly recommend picking this up. Just great resource. So real briefly, I just want to point out that Crafty Games has a lot in the Mistborn RPG series. They created it. So you can go to the mistbornrpg.com or craftygames.com and you could check these books out. They have free resources on there that you can use for the RPG, which are going to be different character sheets, different plot point sheets, all sorts of really cool resources. And you can see all the other products that come with the Mistborn adventure game. So I highly recommend checking out the mistbornrpg.com, or Crafty Games will take you there too, craftygames.com. Thank you for watching.